Chapter 10, the grand finale. The buffalo costumes were not working out. Even Josh, the artist in the family, could not make brown grocery sacks look like the shaggy heads of buffalo, no matter how much stuff he glued on them. Every time he changed them still again and showed them to Mother, she'd say, "Is that a goat?" "No, wait, I got it. A sheepdog." "Why don't we just forget the girls and do something we think will win?" said Wally. But Jake had other ideas. "What we need is a costume the teachers will like and the principal will love, that can still destroy anything in its path. Then, no matter what the Malloys come up with, we can devour it." "Think, Wally. Think of something that can sort of suck up everything in its path." "A vacuum cleaner?" "No, what else?" "A tidal wave?" "Yeah, what else?" "A tornado?" "Keep thinking. Come on, Wally, think." "An alien spaceship?" "That's it. We'll be aliens. They can do anything. We can get one of those huge truck inner tubes, and all of us could stand inside the middle, holding it up around our waist, and we'd knock over everything we bumped into. I'll design our helmets." All you had to do was give Josh an idea, and he was already drawing a picture of it in his head. "Wow," said Peter softly as he watched the alien spaceship appearing right at the end of Josh's pencil. When they asked their dad if he could get a giant inner tube for them, Mr. Hatford replied, "Why, I think that could be arranged." At last, everything seemed to be working out. The Halloween parade was only 4 days off, but meanwhile, Wally had another worry: the play. The Goblin Queen, Caroline Malloy in particular. The trouble with Caroline was that she never stopped being queen. If she was eating lunch, she set her empty milk carton on top of her head like a crown and kept it there. If she had to go to the blackboard to explain a problem, she used Miss Applebaum's pointer like a scepter anointing a knight, and she would slowly make her way up and down staircases with her back straight and her head high, looking neither to the right or the left. To Wally, there was nothing worse than being in a play with Caroline Malloy. Never mind that he would be doing something special for the younger students. He did not want to make them happy. They were happy enough as it was. Wally wanted his recesses back. He wanted his lunch hour back. He didn't want to spend them standing around a drafty stage waiting for Caroline Malloy to decide that playing good tricks at Halloween was better than playing bad ones. Whoever wrote that play was crazy. It took 30 minutes for the Goblin Queen to get the point to the fairy godmother to make her beautiful again, just so Wally could say, "Your throne, milady," and then, "I hear my queen and obey." Each day of practice got longer and longer because Caroline kept adding to her part. If her line was something short, like, "What do you suppose, dear sisters, the villagers would do if we were to wash their windows for a change?" Caroline would say, "What do you suppose, my dear, dear goblin sisters, the villagers would do? Instead of causing them trouble and hardship, we did something kind instead, such as washing their windows." Wally would stand on one foot and then the other, and finally Miss Applebaum grew tired. "Caroline, if we don't hurry this play along, our primary students will all be asleep before we're done." So finally, Caroline would say, "We must spread the word throughout the Goblin Kingdom that there will be a kind of tricks on Halloween night that will make it a night to remember and fill all hearts with joy." And then, only then, would Wally escort her to her chair and say, "Your throne, milady." When Thursday came, Wally wasn't sure whether he wanted to get up or not. It was the day of the play, which was a good reason to stay in bed. On the other hand, once it was over, he'd never have to do that part again, which was the only reason he could think of to get up at all. He turned over on his back and noticed a narrow shaft of sunlight coming through the window. "Wally, are you up? If you want pancakes, you better come now." Wally the footman got out of bed, pulled on his jeans and socks, and gave a big sigh. At school, the primary students filed into the auditorium about 10 o'clock, and the students from Miss Applebaum's class who were in the play gathered behind the velvet curtain on stage. "I can't believe this is really happening," Caroline said to Wally. "I'm a real actress at last. Do you know where you'll see my name someday?" "On a tombstone," said Wally. Caroline flashed a disgusted look. In lights, on Broadway, someday. You and your brothers will go to the movies and see me up there on the screen." If we see you on the screen, we'll ask for our money back, said Wally. Beyond the velvet curtain, the audience had grown quiet, and Wally could hear Miss Applebaum telling them about the play. And then the music started, and the lights went out. The curtain came apart, and Caroline was walking on stage. Halloween again, Caroline was saying. I wish we could do something different this year, don't you? I'm getting tired of the same old thing, and the play began. If it wasn't for Caroline, Wally might have enjoyed the play. A little bit, anyway. It was sort of fun peeping out from behind the curtain to see the younger children watching. Peter, with his eyes wide and his mouth open, to hear them laugh at all the funny lines and giggle when one of the witches tripped over a broomstick on purpose and went sprawling. He and another boy had to pull the curtain between the first and second acts, and that was fun. It was also fun to watch the custodian sitting on a stool off stage, making the lights get brighter and more dim. But Caroline, as usual, had to ruin it all. She added lines that weren't there. She added words to the lines that were. Even Miss Applebaum in the first row was trying to get Caroline's attention to hurry her along. Finally, when it came time for Wally to say his line, he felt he couldn't stand it any longer. Your throne, m'lady, he said, escorting her to the chair. And then, just as she was about to sit down, he pulled the chair out from under her, and she sat on the floor with a plop. The primary children shrieked with laughter, and even Miss Applebaum, who looked horrified at first, seemed to be trying very hard not to laugh. Wally had thought that would be the end of it. He had thought that Caroline would be so embarrassed that she would want the play to be over quickly. But Caroline was not hurrying her lines. She was not even getting up. The children stopped laughing. Miss Applebaum leaned forward, looking concerned, and then from the floor where she lay with her arms outstretched, she said grandly, Where are my good and faithful footmen? I am more exhausted than I knew. Please bear me thither, that I might lie among the flowers of the field, surrounded by my people. And she folded her arms across her chest. Wally stared at Caroline and then at the other footmen. They looked at Miss Applebaum, who was nodding to them. There was nothing else to be done. I hear my queen and obey, said Wally. He picked Caroline up by the arms. The other footman picked her up by the feet, and as they carried her off stage, Caroline turned toward the audience and blew them a kiss. Everyone clapped. It made Wally sick to his stomach. That evening, the boys tried out their spaceship costume. Mr. Hatford had gone to the truck stop near Elkins and bought a bigger inner tube than the boys even knew existed. All four of them could easily fit in the center hole, one hand holding the inner tube up and the other carrying the space guns that Josh had designed out of aluminum foil. Each of them was facing a different direction, and with the strange helmets Josh had designed, also a foil, they looked like men from another planet. Josh had even made green paper ears that fit over their own. Well, if you don't win first prize, you should get a prize for originality, their father told them. They practiced walking, two walking sideways, one walking back, and Jake in front leading the way. Naturally, Jake. It was Wally's idea, yet Jake was always the general. When Mother came home from the hardware store at 9, the boys showed her their spaceship, and she said it was the best costume they'd ever made. Absolutely. As she hung up her coat, however, Wally heard her say to the father, Tom, are the Malloys raising chickens? Chickens? I think the coach would have enough to do without fooling with chickens. Why? Because the Malloy girls were in the hardware store the other day buying chicken wire, and I just wondered. What? Yelled Wally. The other boys crawled out too, and the inner tube landed in a loud whap on the floor. Wally, don't yell. I simply asked if the Malloys were raising chickens. Jake and Josh stared at each other. What did I say? It's not as though I announced the second coming. All I said was that Malloy girls were in the store to... How much wire? Well, I don't know. Quite a lot, as I remember. But it isn't our best grade at all. It was the bendable stuff that will snag if even a cat jumps on it. Their costume, cried Wally. They aren't going to be a TP at all, I'll bet. Think, Mom. Did they buy anything else? Say anything? Do anything? What has gotten into you boys? The youngest one stood there wrapping it around and around herself while the other sisters were paying for it. But I figured she was just being a bit silly, and... The boys huddled around the kitchen table. What do you suppose it could be? Asked Josh. Something awesome, I'll bet, said Wally. There's only one thing to do, said Jake. Smash it.